Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to have back with me Dr. Charlie McCormick, the president at Schreiner University. Dr. McCormick, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be back again.
We're recording this in mid-March, and I thought it'd be a great time to ask you maybe to look back at the 24-25 academic year and maybe look forward and with a little teaser previews for 25-26. So you've had a lot of changes in starting certainly before 24, but what are some of the highlights from you for this academic year?
if I can even narrow in a little tighter to begin with, Tom, it's not only mid March, it's also Wednesday. And every Wednesday morning, our Schreiner Institute men and women take a jog around campus. So, Schreiner Institute is the program that works with our veteran students and ROTC students and students going on to a military academy. And they take a jog, and I can hear them doing their call and response cadence as they jog around campus. And as they get closer to me, it gets louder and louder. And as they pass by my windows outside, they stop their call and response and say good morning to Dr. McCormick. And so I got to start off this morning with the Schreiner Institute folks wishing me good morning. And that makes every Wednesday a great day. It's become my favorite day of the week because of that. So that's something new that's been added to this academic year, 24-25. And I hope that continues for as many years as I'm president at Schreiner.
What a great tribute.
Yeah. So it has been a great fun year with lots going on. I keep thinking one of these years, I'm just going to sit back and say, I got nothing to do today but drink my coffee and read the newspaper. But that has yet to happen. This year, one of the really exciting things for me was we got our Center for Talent and Workforce Development program launched. And the idea behind this division was that it would focus on certificates, certifications, micro credentials of varying sorts that might be an opportunity for people out there who said, I don't want to go to college. I don't intend to go to college, but I would like to maybe upskill or reskill or just learn how to do this thing. And we think that for some people will be a gateway experience for them. And they'll say, wait a second, I can actually do this sort of college stuff. I want to go on and get a degree. Other people will say that's exactly the sort of educational experience I wanted and needed. I'm going to stop right there. And then we also think that our traditional undergraduates will find this an opportunity to sort of bolt on additional credentials and certifications onto their degree that will help them be more competitive once they graduate from Schreiner for their first job or getting into graduate school, whatever they may want to do next. So that's very exciting. This is deep waters for me to swim in, and I'm glad we've got some good people who understand this better than I do. But one of the first programs I was told we needed was a program called mechatronics. And I thought somebody was pulling my leg. It sounded like a transformer or something like that to me, but no, it's a little bit electrical engineering, a little bit coding, a little bit robotics and automation. And so we have got our equipment purchased. We're getting the space ready, and next fall we'll have our first class of mechatronics for students who want to develop that national licensure in that area. So that's one thing that's just really exciting to me. Football coming online is also very exciting as well. And that's generated a lot of enthusiasm, and it's just different. I'd like to tell you that everything people have the same response to as football, but they just don't. People get excited about that in ways that are unique to football. But football has all sorts of secondary benefits. For instance, we're recruiting right now for students who are going to be in our new drum and bugle corps. And that'll actually be housed in Schreiner Institute. So we know what their uniforms will look like, and we've got their drums and their brass ordered. And I think that's going to be a great addition, not only to a football halftime show, but for a variety of activities throughout the community. When you say, what this thing needs is a drum and bugle corps, we'll be ready to answer that call. And then, of course, we continue to add more academic programs. So this year, we launched agriculture. That follows on the heels of a new computer science program and a new engineering and, of course, a new aviation program. And we had one faculty member for agriculture. We've just made an offer, and the person has accepted that offer, who'll be joining us in the fall semester. And that really allows us to expand into some ag tech areas. So we'll both do very traditional sort of agriculture, soil sciences, animal sciences, craft agriculture. But this new hire is also going to push agriculture up next to computer science and engineering, I think in some very interesting ways, and really will help our students understand if they want to get in the agricultural industry when they graduate, they can really bring significant value to that industry because of what they're going to learn and do here.
And innovation.
And innovation. That's right. And who knows what it's going to look like. Somebody was telling me, oh, those vineyards you have on campus or those vines, that's going to be treated by a drone that identifies a disease on a leaf autonomously and can treat it right there at the spot. And that just sounds like science fiction to me, but it's exciting.
You have an agricultural background, at least from growing up.
I grew up in Snyder, and so everybody had a little bit of agricultural experience, but I learned pretty quickly, man, it's hot out there.
And it's work.
And it's work. So if you can find the job inside with air conditioning, that's not bad either. So
What about the banking program? Has that been able to kind of get going?
yeah, so I should probably be more courageous than I am. It took some of our local and regional bankers a couple of visits with me to convince me that this was a good place to devote some of our time and energy. And they really sold me on the idea when they said, Charlie, there are lots of good banking programs across the state, but nobody's really doing rural banking. And if you can figure out a way to do that better, that's going to help the industry as a whole and a whole lot of small towns in particular. And so that's what we've been focused on. Now, there's a lot that's transferable from the rural context to the urban context. So it's not only for students who intend to be rural, but a special focus there. And because we're interested in this being rural, one of the things that we were told is there are tellers out in Johnson City, there's Menard, Eden, and they're the most likely person to be able to be promoted within the bank and who wants to still live in that town and work at the bank. But they can't come to Schreiner to take classes as a regular student. So help us think about a sort of online program that they could complete, maybe with a low residency component on Schreiner's campus. So they come over for a long weekend, for instance, and that helps give them the skills and the experience so that they can get their next position in the bank. And so we're working on that right now. We're doing some really high quality online instruction, and that should be ready to be launched this fall semester. We do have an on-campus banking minor. So we do have students in our business school right now that are taking those classes. And, just a huge shout out to so many of our local bankers who come in and say, they usually come in on Fridays, I think it is. And they've been reading up the students have been reading up in theory about credit risk. But then they have a banker come in and say, the knowledge is important. Here's what happens in real life with all of these sorts of things. So it's been a great experience.
So I moved to Kerrville from Houston, large metropolitan area. And one of the things that has intrigued me is the difference in economic, political, and social issues in a small town. But what you've just talked about really brought home for me the difference, perhaps a different focus in educational issues as well. And you mentioned ag tech, and we talked about banking in small towns. Is that sort of one of the missions you're trying to bring academic and educational expertise to small town Texas?
It is. And Tom, it's easy to forget because schools like Harvard and Stanford sort of suck the oxygen out of the room when we talk about higher education, but that for the vast majority of colleges and universities, we are regional and local enterprises. So on the national level, if you look at how far students travel from their home to college, the average distance is 51 miles. And I didn't believe that number, so I had our people go check it out for our students. It turns out it's 52 miles. so just spot on. And when you look at who is around us in 52 miles, it becomes pretty clear that we have a lot of people who are in small town, rural Texas that end up at Schreiner. And so about 4 or 5 years ago, I lose track of time a little bit, but about that, we said, let's really lean in to our commitment to our rural students. And among other things, we hired a former superintendent from Harper who began to go to all of the small towns, particularly out west of us and south of us, and start recruiting students out there. Maybe they only had a high school class of 12 students or something like that. And it's hard to say for a large metropolitan school, it's a good return on our investment to go out to those schools and maybe pick up one student who wants to come. But our calculus is a little different. And so Chris goes out there and he recruits those students like they're Division I college athletes. And it's important for them and their families to know that there are places that want you. And it's important for us as a small school to get two or three of those who maybe didn't think they were going to go to college or didn't know where they wanted to go to college to say, Shriner's going to be the school that I go to.
And let me pick up on the point, not about the student, but about the family. How do you have a conversation with a mother and father, husband and wife who have never not gone to college? There may be no one in their family's gone to college. Their son or daughter may be the first to go to college. How do you have that conversation that they have to trust you? You have to trust you're going to take care of their child. What is that conversation like?
So we had this conversation a lot because well over a third of our first generation college goers in their family. So that's something we were just always talking about. And it's a combination of a whole lot of things. One is my child going to be safe while they're at college? And this is a place where we benefit from living in a place like Kerrville. That on the whole is relatively safe, and people come here and they feel safe when they come here. We had a former head of chief financial officer who used to say, we keep our doors locked on campus because sometimes people from Dallas or Houston drive through. So, but when families come and visit us here and they see what it's like, it feels like a place they would want to leave their kids. Then they're always also concerned about issues related to affordability. And especially if you haven't spent a long time in the college context, there's a lot about financing a college education, which seems esoteric. We talk about things like the FAFSA, and people look at us like, what, is that even a word? And so we spend a lot of time unpacking that process. But our board also said, and again, this was probably a decade ago, let's help people understand this process. And so let's lock in our tuition so that it doesn't get raised every year and people wonder why their financial aid package is worth less and less. So we have locked in tuition. Whatever you pay your freshman year is going to be what you pay your senior year. And they also said, let's stop adding on all these fees. You think you've paid your bills, and then you've got to pay for parking, and then you got to pay for your textbooks on down the list. And they said, we're just going to be inclusive with all of that so that you really understand what your bill is when you come to Schreiner. So that's an important piece too. And then there's the value piece, and families are concerned, is this ultimately going to be worth it? The time, the investment. And so we've spent a lot of time in the last several years really trying to create credentials and programs of value where it becomes very evident to our families that if you study engineering, there's a good chance you're going to get a good job as a result of that. Now, keep in mind, I'm an English faculty member. And so there's still a very soft spot in my heart for an English major. We need good English majors. It can turn out okay for them too, as I like to remind
the humanities still are important.
They still matter, but especially for students that don't have and families that don't have a lot of college experience, programs like the humanities are just a harder sell. It's harder to make the connection between here's what I'm learning and here's how that's going to translate into not just a good job, but a great career or two after graduation.
Can I maybe ask you to turn towards the upcoming academic year? And are there 2 or 3 things you might be able to share with us that you're looking forward to either rolling out or expanding in 25, 26?
Yeah. So some of the big things that we're looking forward to is, of course, the official launch of football, which will start up. We have just moved to a new athletic conference as of yesterday. So we'll be in the American Southwest Conference moving forward. Really excited about that. It tightens up our geographical footprint a little bit, which means our student athletes will have less time traveling and can spend more time in class. And it's going to make it easier for parents to attend games as well. So I'm enthusiastic about that. We are also going to have a exhibition match here in about 2 weeks in women's flag football. And so we're recruiting students for a women's flag football team that will be playing next year and well into the future as well. So many things I think is exciting about that. There's not a high bar of entry there. There's not a lot of sophisticated uniforms, helmets, and things like that you have to purchase. But it's a great opportunity for us to really be the tip of the spear on an emerging sport that I think is just going to continue to grow and increase over time. So that's exciting. And then I mentioned the drum and bugle corps. I think next year you're going to see a lot of content being produced from the Texas Center. Dr. Frazier, who's our director, has been not huddled down, but his team has been working on an extraordinary program called E Pluribus Texas, which will, I think, officially release in May, just as the academic year is concluding. And we hope it transforms people's understanding of Texas history, even the educational environment of how you teach Texas history all across the state, from fourth grade to seventh grade, even to college as well. So those things to me are exciting, and I'm looking forward to all of them rolling out.
Dr. McCormick, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode, but I wanted to thank you again, and I greatly look forward to catching up with you soon.
I do too, Tom. Thank you very much.